you see the video. Everyone's seen the video at this point. Do you regret anything that happened that night?
Absolutely. Immediately recognizing there's discredit to my service to her in the situation. I got so much focused on what I observed then at the time was an issue. We had a junior deputy that had just started out. She was just released on her own, Deputy Pereira, and she had already made contact with Miss Leal, and she broke contact, and that's a no-no. You do the best you can to keep them out, whether it's talking them down, whether it's doing what you need to do. I got focused on that, and my train of thought was that, and now I need to get her back out of the house because we don't know what's inside. The inside is the unknown, and that was what my focus was on at that point.
The video shows, when you walk up on scene, they knock on the door, she comes back out, and what went through your mind when she walked back out that door? Was it to get inside to search?
For a search of persons, a security check, yes, because she wasn't the one that called. Her family member, whether it was a cousin or a sister, I can't remember, called at this point. I didn't know if she was still inside because they had broke contact at some point with her with dispatch. So I knew that she was probably going to be inside. I responded to hundreds of calls in different areas, and 9 times out of 10, there's usually going to be someone else there, if not a next door neighbor, upstairs, downstairs. There's somebody who, if they've taken the time to call a third-party caller, they're going to stick around and be within the vicinity. Her cousin, or her family member, maybe. The family member was still in there, of course, going through the deal after the fact, and that's where we were going back and forth, and that's when she popped out, and of course that's confirmation that yes, she was inside.
And you thought the suspect was still inside?
Correct. I had a keen belief. I had never been there before to that residence, or ever had contact with either or any of the subjects that we dealt with that evening. The information that was being relayed to us through dispatch, over the radio, through MDT as we're going along, the boyfriend had prior assaultive history with her. There was a warrant for him, and it was all assaultive stuff in regards to her contact with him, his contact with her, rather. And so these are just things, they're just little red flags going up. And at this point now, with the just all that, my focus was we need to make sure that he's not in there.
Well, you see in that video, when you move toward the door, you put your hand on her. What was going through your mind when you decided to put your hands on her?
Right, so my intent was at the point, let's get her separated, let's get her to continue to keep on talking with a female deputy whom she already established contact with. Looking back after the fact, one of my things that I could have done, and which we receive training on, we get more training on, because that is obviously a topic that's something that the public wants in policing nowadays, to de-escalate and do what we can. She was at a pretty even tone at that point. She had not elevated her voice by any means. There was no confrontation. So I felt that it was going to be passed enough to the point where I could just basically get her off to the side so I can start making contact at the door, doing call-outs to see if anybody else was in there. And it was an immediate response as soon as I went like this to get to her, to kind of get her this way. She was quick, and she held on for dear life on the door handle. She wasn't fighting us. She was just trying to make sure that we were not going to get entry to the apartment.
She's eventually taken to the ground. Right. She's yelling. You all are shouting commands at her.
Right.
The video in and of itself sounds bad, looks bad. It's a domestic violence victim calling for help. She ends up on the ground under deputies and in handcuffs. You know how this video looks to the public.
Absolutely. And I don't want to take anything away from that. It does sound bad. It's in a closed-in foyer. It's all cement. It's an apartment complex, closed-in foyer area, and it was loud. And granted, yes, she was screaming. Yes. There was a mix of, still I believe that there was a mix of an alert that he may have been inside, and then more so just an alert to just buzz off. Excuse me. Or she just didn't want anything to happen as far as us going inside.
Did at any point during that call when you walked up, did you ever lose your cool? Did you ever cross the line where you knew, I should not be doing this right now?
My professionalism, yes, it went out the window. And again, my focus was on that deputy. I stayed stuck on that for whatever reason. I don't know why. I stayed stuck on that. I was upset in the moment that she broke that contact, and then immediately when the victim responded in the manner that she did, of course, how she perceives me coming at her to move her away, and I'm invading her space. Yes, she's going to react that way. And I forgot where we're going with that. What was the question?
Oh, just that did you ever in your mind think to yourself that, man, I may be crossing a line?
Yes, right. So, and again, my professionalism went out the window just with the contact from the deputy that initially made the initial contact with her, and I could have. We probably could have stayed back a bit and let the female deputy talk a little bit more, but I felt that there was an urgency to get inside based on everything was going. Now that we had her inside, but now the other thing is we possibly have somebody else inside, which would that been the caller, and that was of course known after the fact as we proceeded through the call.
You watched today. There was a press conference where the sheriff made allegations against you, said that you were part of a rogue group of deputies with the former sheriff's office, that you were not disciplined enough, and so you hear all this, but did you believe in the moment that night that anything that you were doing was criminal?
No. I did not have any malicious intent to hurt her. She's already been victimized. She's already been through a lot. Her neighbor even added too, y'all don't put her through this. And I was just point after the fact when she was already in handcuffs. Don't put her through this, she's already been through enough. So he's seen it too. So there's obviously a history of violence. Like I said, I'd never been there before. And for him to say that, it was just, it was just one of those things after the fact that you read into it. As far as the information goes, in regards to the history, the continuance of domestic situations.
I guess you took an extraordinary step today. I mean, you decided to pick up the phone and give us a call. What led you to decide to sit down and talk about this?
Initially, you've reached out to me before. Then I was employed, and I was under a policy that I couldn't freely reach out to you, and I was worried about losing my job. Things were at a political climax then at the point where I felt that it probably would have taken a turn for the worse for me then. Granted, but here I am now. I've already gone through the process that I have gone through, and rightfully so. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's accountability. Just like Sheriff Gleason said, and District Attorney Sean Dick said the same thing too, and it's accountability following through with what they felt that needed to be addressed. So that's why today happened, or this morning happened as it did.
There's obviously a misdemeanor A in Texas. That's grounds for a license revocation.
Yes, sir.
At this point, do you plan to fight this, to plea? I mean, what is your plans for your future in law enforcement?
It's not so much fighting it. It's going through the process as anyone else would have. Granted, in regards to the offense, there's due process there, but in regards to the license, it's going to be up to the public. It's going to be up to TCO. It's going to be up to the TMPA representation that I have to see if they're going to continue to find it worth for me to continue in law enforcement. And I leave that up to them. I've dedicated the first half of my adult life in law enforcement, and I initially wanted to be at Williamson County, and years ago I got to where I wanted to be, and I understand why I'm here now, or how things have ended up, and I'm not trying to take away anything that I've done to put myself in a situation, because I could have done better, by all means. But I would like to continue if I would be allowed to, but that's not up to me. That is out of my hands.
The charge listed is assault and official oppression.
Correct.
Do you, sitting here today, feel as though you committed any assault on this victim or official oppression?
No, so that was not my intent. I was not there unlawfully. I was there on a call for service for someone who had been in a circumstance of being in a strangulation with information of a known boyfriend, or I would say someone that she was in a relationship with. Everything else, the information I got beforehand, before I got there, it gets the wheels turning, red flags start going up of what the urgency is to take care of things. Now, even folks that are here then at the time when the incident occurred, and now disagree with it. You got some people in and some people out, and everybody's going to have, what they call the Monday night quarterback in law enforcement. Everybody's going to have something to say after the fact. You could have done this better. Now, granted, again, not taking away that my professionalism, I felt there, by all means. I could have done better there. I could have held back. I could have let things de-escalate. I could have let Deputy Pearl do her thing and try to reestablish that relationship. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I got to get in there because I got to make sure that the other party is safe. And one, if he's in there, we need to get him out because he's got a warrant. Because if we leave and we're not able to get him in custody or take care of this, the likelihood of her being in danger is probable. It's going to be high. And again, that's based off my training experience and going through the stuff that I've dealt with, and not here within Williamson County, but in previous agencies that I've worked for. Different demographics that things happen like that. And I was just going off of experience at the time and things that I've dealt with as far as domestic situations. Again, out of the hundreds and hundreds of calls that I've responded to over the years.
What did you think when you got the call yesterday from Williamson County that we've got warrants?
Hard drop. No good cop. No good cop likes a bad cop. I have always operated on a direct form of communication, so I effectively communicate what it is that I'm trying to do, especially when I recognize something that needs to be taken care of. And I have regrets on how I could have taken care of that. Excuse me.
Take your time.
I have regrets still. I think
Sounds like this crushed you, man.
I've worked hard in my career, but I believe it to be my law enforcement career to always do the right thing. Things like this domestic that I dealt with, I've dealt with previously. I grew up in an abusive household. I witnessed my mother be beaten, and I always take that with me. I always had that with me. I always felt that I always needed to do more. Sometimes you can't do more because the victim won't allow you to. They don't want you to. They're fearful what happens when you leave, what happens after the fact, because what we do there in that moment is temporary. Even though, yes, we're stopping that situation, we're resolving what is going on there. It's temporary. They have to go back to that world. We don't. And we may have to for another call of service, and it continues. And I got to the point where if I dealt with something, I recognized that something needed to be taken care of. I did it so that they know that the next time that I came around, that things were going to be handled, things were going to be fully addressed, not just pushed off to the side. Or, oh, the cops don't do anything, the cops don't care. And here, disservice to her, I still gave her that perception. One of her statements on there that I recall and will stay with me is, I know who you Williamson County guys are. I've never had contact with her. So that just tells you the context that she's had previously before. And again, I don't know how long she's been living here. And I would imagine it would go before the prior administration as well, too, for her to say something like that. Williamson County had a reputation. One of the biggest sayings was always, come on vacation, leave on probation, that type of deal. And
Any truth to that?
From my perspective, as far as sternness, dealing with things, I believe so. Anything that ever came about to where something needed to be addressed, it was going to be taken care of. It was going to be taken lightly. You deal here in this area, Cedar Park, Austin, some of Travis County. They're, the officers and the deputies you deal with, you encounter sometimes. A lot of times they see the car show up and they're like, dang, Williamson County's here. All right, well, let's act right. And you see the guys they're dealing with change their tone. The officers, the deputies will come up to you and tell you, hey, man, thanks for just showing up. Can you just wait there a little bit until things work out and until we take care of what we need to? And that's the reputation that has rolled along, and that's how I see it in that perspective in regards to taking care of things. But to getting back to the whole deal, it's affected me because hearing the lack of my professionalism and not keeping focus on what needed to be handled the right way, I failed my family, I failed myself. I've tarnished the badge even further in regards to public's perception of law enforcement in general, not here in Williamson County, not here in just Central Texas, not in Texas, on a national level, with everything that's going on right now, that I really need to be part of this. Could I have taken care of this? Could I have prevented this? Yes, absolutely. And that's, I've discussed it before, I take full accountability for. But in regards to the whole unlawful aspect of it, was my intent, and did I go in with malicious means to go and assault her and victimize her further and put her in a predicament to where she was going to have to go through a horror ordeal? No, that was never my intent. I think another thing that caught me by surprise is just her reaction to us, or me, I won't say us, to me, in regards to when my notion was to just get her to Pereira to deal with on that end. And when I made contact with the door, or was going to make contact with the door, at that point there was no recovery. And in the moment you try to stay stern and try to stay focused on what needed to go on, it needs to be how it needs to go and what needs to happen, taken care of. And I fell apart and all the way through. And my professionalism was done all the way through as well too. I know Deputy Pereira had some words for her that opened her up for some questions that I shouldn't have finished and that I did. I think she was asking why this was happening, and that's towards the end of the segment there of our contact with her. And I followed up with what happened out there didn't need to happen. When you do what you did, that's going to happen. And I could have put it better, but I probably would have relayed the same information, but in a better manner. But even then, I already lost her. I lost her. I lost her confidence in my service to her. That's something that I can't get back, and I will carry with me, regardless of whether I'm allowed to return to law enforcement or not. It's just something that I have to accept and something that I did.
That's the thing too, is your profession, like mine, is built 100% on trust and credibility. That video is out there. You'll forever be tied professionally to that video.
Yes.
Do you think that if you are allowed to continue on in law enforcement, can you be trusted to do the right thing from now on?
Absolutely. It's going to take some time. It may not be here in Williamson County. It may not be anywhere close to Williamson County. Like I said, I failed the community. Williamson County here are very vocal. They'll let you know when they don't like something. And I've always appreciated that. Williamson County always had our backs with anything and everything we did. There may have been a lot of folks, and they were very quick to tell you that they didn't like the prior administration. You're all right though, and that's something to go along with, right? Because we're not all the same. And and that's one of those things that it's going to just be up to the public to, if that's what ends up happening, and if it was the ultimate determination for the public to allow me to come back, and that'd be the greatest. I'd be grateful for that, because that is what I've dedicated my life to in law enforcement and provided for my family as well too. I messed up. I made a mistake. Not by any means did I ever try to get to the point that I thought this was going to go away. The Rangers investigated it. And that's the pinnacle of law enforcement, Texas Rangers. And once they addressed it, I'm like, okay, well, here we go then. And I have no reservations there. I spoke with them. We did what we did there, and I didn't hear anything for several months. And I inquired before the new administration took office as well too. And I inquired, and even directly to the DA's office, and the DA said, "Hey, just No, not right now. We don't have any information for you, and which is fine because they did. If they didn't, they didn't. I mean, that's not my place. You usually get an attorney for that, but I'm trying to. If what happened when I got the call yesterday and what had to happen today, I had received that, then I would have taken care of it in the same manner. It would have been no different. I'm not hiding from anything. When Detective Boatwright called me yesterday, yeah, my heart dropped. Sank my world. I've been unemployed since then. No agency is wanting to even really look at me with reason, and I understand. But it just got even worse. But yes, sir. Well, what do I need to do? Where do I need to go? And just like Sheriff Gleason said, there was no special treatment. I did everything that any other individual charged with an offense had to go through. There was nothing in the process to the point where we're gonna just do this. No, I went through a little process. Even in the booking paperwork that you receive, I just got a glance at my booking photo. I'm like, wow. You don't really see it. It's not so much the mirror, but just seeing something, your name, state of Texas, against you, and then to see my booking photo on there in the state that I was in at that time. And I think even in the booking photo, it references where I was at that time. As far as the accountability part, I mean, I don't know what more there that you need as far as confirmation. I knew it was there, and I broke down there as well. But other than that, I mean, just like District Attorney Sean Dick said, that they just want to go through the accountability portion of it for something that they weren't able to address, and they're addressing it now. So that was, I guess, the delay. Otherwise, we would have taken care of it then. And I resigned from the sheriff's office because indirectly and figuratively speaking, I felt like I saw the writing on the walls when I was initially brought in by one of the CID lieutenants. They said, "Hey, look, we're going to put you out of your position because we'll bring someone with more experience." That's fine. I get that part because I was only a year in on the investigation side. And he says, "I don't know where you'll end up, but just go ahead and you're probably up on patrol. Just go get a unit, and then we'll go from there. And you'll wait for your orders." And yes, sir. So no fuss, nothing. I understood. I was just thinking then at the time I was lucky to be able to thinking I was going to be able to keep my job. I didn't get any notification that they were going to do otherwise, and I went to go get my unit, and people that I would normally call and send emails to confirm things weren't responding to me. And I'm just like, well, it just started dwelling me. A couple hours later, still nothing. Finally, my last supervisor referenced, "Hey, just go home. Next week we'll talk about it. We'll figure out where you need to be." And I'm okay. And then over the weekend, I couldn't let it go, and I just finally said, well, it's evident that because they believed I was affiliated with the Chody administration, that I was one of his guys. Anybody that was with the Light PD show, they just want to get it out, and I understood. That's why I left. I felt that the Rangers had already done what they did. There was nothing that had continued to come up that was current with the after their investigation, and I inquired myself, so I'm like, well, I guess it's time for me to go, and maybe I'll find a home somewhere else quickly and go from there. I get my F5, my license status, and it's on the general discharge. And so, if they had that, if I was informed then I wouldn't have left, because I would have known that I was under investigation, and I would have remained. If I would have known, and I watched a little bit of the conference, if I would have known that they were going to provide me the opportunity to stay while all the legal stuff went through, then I would have stayed. But no one ever told me anything. No one ever communicated with me, and so that's why I resigned.
When did you resign?
I resigned 1/3 or 1/5. Right at the beginning of the year.
Oh, so you were okay with the new administration. I got you. Okay. You so I guess to wrap this up, it is at that press conference today, I mean, there was a clear tie that the sheriff drew a clear line between you and Robert Chody, you, Live PD, you, and the scrutiny that has come down on the sheriff's office. There's also the discussion about the WilCo Badass Award. Were you ever offered gift cards or offered appearances on Live PD to abuse people?
No, sir. Absolutely not. I will reference the gift card thing came through, where the gift card came through, and the knowledge that I have of it, and what I recall, what I was informed of, is that if we caught a burglar in progress, and we got them in custody for a burglary in progress, then at that point we would get rewarded. We possibly get rewarded with something. And that was the only thing that I have recollection that I have off of a gift card. I never had any affiliation with that. I never received anything. I was never informed of that. So no.
Was the WilCo Badass something you all joked about internally?
That was something that was said amongst a lot of the SWAT guys and any of I guess the ones that were closer to the Live PD stuff. The whole Live PD reference is, it's funny that I was never really given the opportunity to be like a primary or I guess one of the main ones, because they said I was not fitting for camera. I was basically too heavy for camera, and which I thought was funny, because when I got to the point where I did that first night of the Live PD, back when I had contact with a drunk elderly female, that one was aired. And in my mind, I should have stopped then, as I grew up watching cops. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then this came, and I'm like, well, let's do it. And went through it and got through it. I felt bad for the lady, and we got her taken care of. We helped her up. That's me. And yes, dealing with DWI investigations is something that was always close to my heart, that I was always pay extra attention to, and really be thorough about it. I didn't take that out on her in a personal effect. It's one of those things that that if I could take that back, I probably would have only done that one and that one only. But even then, at that point, there was no one on shift that was wanting to do it anymore. And when I said I didn't want to do it anymore, they're like, well, you're the only one with experience. Let's just keep them riding out with you. And I think I had maybe 3 or 4 more contacts after that were not a Live PD live segment, but they were a off segment. Says previously recorded or something to that effect, and I had maybe 3 or 4 of those, and that was my involvement with Live PD. But if I could take that back, I probably would have only done that one and just stepped away and really put my foot down and said, no, I don't want to do it. As much of a highlight that could have been for law enforcement, and could have been for everything in general, it wasn't. It ended up turning into a shamble. And, now, it's like the Sheriff Gleason said, it was the catalyst of the bill that was passed, and that law enforcement will never be documented in a manner like that again. And I understand that.
You I guess the final point, it was another point that Gleason made today, was we found out today that the Ramsey Mitchell stop from June of 2019 was still under an active Texas Rangers investigation. You see you in that video coming in fairly late. Yeah. You run up and you jump down on top of Ramsey Mitchell with a knee and began to take action. I guess just like this other case we're talking about, is there anything about what you did in the Ramsey Mitchell call that you would do differently today?
My 2 strikes were deliberate to his back to gain control of his arm. If you watch that video closely, once that happened, got control of arm, K9 Deputy Charles Duvall got the arm up, able to percuss him, it was done. Everybody starts weeding off. We had one of the deputies here on the left side that eventually got off, and what happened beforehand, that I wasn't a part of. Picked him up, got him up. Medical saw him, we got him off to the side, and he was dealing his deal, and I stood with him, and it was over. I felt that once that I had done that portion of my involvement in that, it was over. Because he was still actively resisting. He was under excited delirium. He was under the influence of drugs or something. But best of my knowledge on that, in regards to how he was at the time, I think even after the fact of the jail, I think he started to come to realize, and he was apologizing and saying, I'm sorry I made you guys do that. Well, it's not necessarily he made us do that. It could have gone different. But in regards to my involvement on that, I felt that as soon as that happened, it was done. Everybody was just off. And if you look at it closely, I think I knocked the deputy a couple good times that was next to me in the face, harder than what contact that I had with Mr. Ramsey, and the whole portion of that was to gain control of his arm to effectively detain him.
And hearing that case is under investigation by the Rangers, are you concerned at all about being charged in that?
I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, I'm not hiding from anything. It's there. I mean, it's there, just like with Leal, just like with the victim involved in the domestic that I was there with. Same difference. The video is there. I'm not backing off from my involvement on that. Uses of forces are not going to look pretty. Not saying, for instance, that this needed to look pretty or any of them look pretty to the extent, but they're just skin-to-skin contact, physical, forceful contact is always going to look bad on camera, and it's always going to look and sound bad, no matter how we do it. You know, the tools that we're given for tasers and stuff like that, they're ineffective. I think they also had tried to tase him as well too. Duval had his taser out. I don't know if he had deployed then at that point again, or was going to deploy, or couldn't deploy, and he was struggling with it with something. And so it's just one of those things that you in the moment you do what you feel that you need to do to take care of things. And if it comes to the point where the Rangers determine that what I did was unlawful, that can be up to them to continue with in regards to their investigation. I mean, I'm not trying to hide from that or deny anything other than what my involvement was with that.
And the one other point I wanted to clear up was that Sheriff Gleason made was Sheriff Gleason said that when they went back and reviewed the reports from the domestic violence case, that he said you failed to accurately describe the detention, and that your report differed from the female deputy. Was that on purpose, or what happened there?
I think the thing is that being a senior deputy, they want more elaboration, especially when you have a trainee who had just started. You're essentially basically taking over on that to detail everything that needs to be detailed that they might miss. And how I explained it to her, hey, look, you're primary on this, go ahead and take care of this. I'll put my part in and what I did, and then we'll go from there. In regards to if she needed anything further, to get back with me. And she was on with me all night, and we even visited after the fact. And I guess that's where, as far as the elaboration of what more I could have put in there as far as everybody's involvement, maybe that's what he's referring to. I wrote the report to the extent in that manner. In regards to how things played out, the key things were the whole use of force portion of it. There's a report that we did then, and it needs to be documented and taken care of. And as far as the terms, and not terms, but the bullet points in the policy in regards to what we address, if a use of force needs to be taken care of, those things are in there, and they were addressed. Asked if she was injured, of course by us, and she's like, no. Do you want EMS? No. These are things that I confirmed verbally, got a verbal confirmation from her. And those are the things that I felt that were necessary on mine, because of the things that I did ask her at that point.
So you didn't omit anything trying to hide what really happened?
No. Could I have elaborated more on the count of Deputy Pereira? Sure. As being the senior deputy, yeah, that was a failure on my part. I could have elaborated a lot more to the point where it shows, it reads better and it shows better of everything that occurred there.
And my final question for you would be is, you've seen the fallout over Live PD's involvement with the sheriff's office under Robert Chody. You were a part of Robert Chody's administration. Do you regret anything about joining that sheriff's office under Robert Chody?
Not necessarily. I regret being part of the Live PD show. I think I got tangled up with wanting to be more involved. I started out initially with the lip sync battle, the national thing that started going about. I was real timid. I had always been shy about doing stuff. And then at the time, my wife was, we were in a scare that she was possibly going to have cancer, and she was going through a deal. So to brighten her up and show her what I did that being a goofy video and made her laugh, and that's where that started. And the next one was a hair thing. I got my hair buzzed, and then I got my son involved in the junior deputy stuff, and I saw it as getting more involved. If I could take any of that back, it'd be the live PD thing in regards to any involvement with that. But in regards to everything that has happened, I don't have any reservations, because some of the people that are there now were there then. They're all good people. They're all good people. And it's no different than they would have no different perception. They would have the same thing, the reservations. Yeah, you probably should have done that, or I should have been part of that. They shouldn't have done that type of thing. Or live PD should never have come to our office. One of those things, maybe.
Do you believe, in your opinion, did live PD take the sheriff's office in a bad direction?
I think with the direction overall, yes.
Was the fact that live PD cameras were on scene through a lot of the instances here, did the fact that those cameras show up on scene, or that deputies could appear on that show, did any of that cause unnecessary uses of force or escalation that would not have happened had those cameras not been there?
I don't necessarily believe so. I think, if anything, it heightened our interactions with folks, because they were pissed off because, can I say pissed off?
Sorry.
Yeah, they would get upset, or they would get pissed off because they saw the cameras there. They didn't want to be recorded. Now, granted, they didn't understand that there were things and waivers that they would have to sign after the fact, and 9 times out of 10, when the producer would go up and ask the arrestee or the folks that we dealt with, hey, I need you to sign this, or can you sign this, so you're going to appear on camera? I'm like, no, buzz off, no. A lot of those contacts would be that, and I think that notion of that, cameras in the face, and they just got to the point, of course, when they started to catch and realize what the live PD was doing, and that they were with us a lot of times, but they were even deputies that didn't have anybody with them, but because they had the camera, they're thinking, oh, I'm on live PD. It's not an actual live PD camera, or a camera, so to speak, like one of yours. It's just the body camera, and they would lose it, and they would just escalate the situation to the point where it's like, oh, we can't do anything. Whether just write it out with them or whatever it may be. But getting back to necessarily saying that it made people want to do more than what they should, I don't think so.
Okay. I think that is, unless there's something else I did not ask you that you want to say, or anything you want to say to that victim.
Yes. How do you want to close it out? Is it a statement you want to start out with, or just?
Yeah, I'll just ask you. The public seen the video again today. They saw your mug shot, the charges against you. You heard the sheriff call you essentially a bad cop.
Right.
Is there anything you want the public to know about Lorenzo Hernandez?
First and foremost, extend my apology to the victim. Regardless of her circumstances and the life that she lived, she was not to be subjected by my failure of professionalism to her. I failed her in my service. I think I made that very clear. Overall, to the people that I worked with, then at the time, that still remain at the sheriff's office, and they're good folks, because they're good cops here. That I didn't make life any easier for them then and probably now. The public's smart enough to understand the difference and know. And it's a hit or miss sometimes. We may get resistance, or we may not. And there's gonna be some folks that don't like the police, and we get that, we understand, and that's the filter that we have to always have with us. And that's what I felt to have, to keep with me. Extending that apology to them as well too, because I brought disgust for Williamson County law enforcement, and then on a national spotlight as well too. We're not only going through it here, all of Texas, all of our nation is going through it, and I didn't help any of the situation. I accept accountability for that, because I can't take that back, and I will carry that with me, even if I'm not allowed to go in law enforcement. That will always remain continue law enforcement. That will always remain as one of my regrets in that, because again, I've worked so hard to get in this spot. WilCo was always going to be it was always my dream job to be here. I couldn't start when I first started out in the academy, but I finally got here, and then even this very second, I'm just dumbfounded that I can't be a part of Williamson County anymore. And more so the residents of Williamson County, like I said before, they're very vocal. They'll tell you how it is, and they tell you how they feel. And I felt them because they had our back. And like I said, it's one of those things that they either like you or they didn't.
And there are going to be people who, again, see this interview, see this video, and will never be convinced that you aren't a bad cop. What do you say to those people too?
The only thing that would prove anything to them after the fact is either the other side of it is they see me prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and they see that portion of the justice come about. They're content with that. Or I go through and I'm allowed to come back to law enforcement, and I prove myself back to this county and back to the people, at least in the surrounding county, and back to law enforcement in general, because the organizations that represent us as well too, TMPA, Texas Municipal Police Association, and CLEAT, there too, I shame that as well. And like I said, I can't take any of that back.
You good? You said it. All right, man. Well, thanks again for calling.
Yes, sir. No, thank you. I appreciate it very much.
All right, man.